What's involved in the head of school evaluation? Who should be involved? And what are the issues to look for? In this video, we explore the role of the board in providing feedback in evaluation of the head of school and some of the sensitivities and pitfalls to watch out for. One of the core functions of the board is to hire, support and evaluate the head of school. You will have picked up on the other videos in this series that speaks of the need to show public support of the head of school and ways to nurture his or her professional growth, as building a strong, trusting relationship between the board and the head has a big impact on the success of the school. And certainly where the relationship fails, then it often results in a poor or even disastrous performance of the school. There are lots of issues at play when considering the relationship with the head of school, as well as the head's performance. Unfortunately, there seems to be quite a high correlation between high board turnover and the head turnover. While not empirical, there are enough examples to show that when the board members turnover, especially the chair, then the institutional memory is lost. The people involved in hiring the head of school and the challenges that were set at the time are no longer present, and new trustees are not aware of these previous decisions and may view the current situations through a very different lens. The point is that the evaluation of the head of school should be based on agreed criteria, agreed in advance between the board and the head, normally based on the school's ethos, job description, and progress towards strategic goals. The head of school leads such a public figure in the life of the school and will typically be the face of decisions and communication that may have originated elsewhere, including decisions from the board. In implementing policy, the head may rarely be praised, but will often face intense criticism among certain groups of parents or staff. And so, as a board, you need to be clear about the criteria and timing of the evaluation of the head of school. While there may be an agreed process to survey parents or faculty, that is, fed back into the head's evaluation, trustees need to resist the urge to jump on each and every complaint that comes in, determining if the issue is a small group of affected people or actually indicative of a much broader pattern of behaviour that needs to be a conscious process by the appropriate evaluation committee. So, for example, with schools scrambling to find strategies for dealing with the COVID pandemic, there may be so much work going on behind the scenes to create robust online learning systems, but there may still be a small group of parents that are voicing their grievance about how their child is disadvantaged somehow, or maybe some elements weren't communicated, or that they weren't given a discount on tuition fees. While these issues would certainly provide useful feedback for the head of school, perhaps relayed through the regular no surprises conversation with the chair, trustees have to have the moral fortitude to resist the pressure to hold private board meetings or to support concerned parents or faculty meetings. The board acts as one voice. While trustees may disagree and debate in meetings, decisions should speak with one voice, and this includes supporting the head. There's a time and a process for evaluation which is agreed, and so the head needs to know that the board are not somehow trying to throw him or her under the bus whenever the going gets tough. If the stakeholders know that there's a formal process for the head's evaluation and they have an opportunity to contribute to the feedback at the appropriate time, then it generally makes it easier to resist these ad hoc attempts to coerce the board to put pressure on the head. So the evaluation is a process agreed in advance with the head of school. For the board, the evaluation is important as it may be the central factor in determining whether a new contract of employment would be offered. For the school, a non-renewal of contract can be a painful experience, and replacing the head can be very time-consuming and costly. For the head of school, it's also important for exactly the same reasons, but the implications are also that he or she will potentially be relocating and having to find other suitable employment elsewhere. The job description should be the basis of much of the evaluation, as it provides a clear-cut outline of the intended responsibilities for the head. There may be some elements of the job description that are less definitive, such as something like upholding the ethos of the school. This leads to debate and the need to agree in advance exactly what the criteria will be used to measure this. If the discussion is not had in advance, then there's a danger that these anecdotal stories get taken out of context, Perhaps there's been a case of a couple of senior students recently having been caught with alcohol at a school function. How this is dealt with will not always be known to the faculty or the broader parent groups, as there may be prior histories and certainly issues of confidentiality. So if trustees are going to interpret the upholding the school ethos on the basis of a couple of more recent anecdotes, or some vocal parents, they may easily miss the opportunity to assess the situation more systematically. So instead, it may have been agreed that there'll be an annual survey of parents and faculty about the school in general, but which will include questions about the leadership of the school and may then include questions related to how the school's ethos is supported or developed. This would give the opportunity for parents of younger children to also contribute and gain a balanced insight into the issues at hand, taking in not just the vocal, but all parents. The head of school also has to be evaluated on specific targets that were agreed with the head that may be part of the school's strategic plan. Again, at the time of setting the targets, there should be clarity about what the success criteria would be, and the targets would need to be realistically achievable. Where targets are phrased vaguely, they would be open to interpretation or misinterpretation. A target such as increased student enrollment may sound appropriate, but what does that mean? Does that mean an increase from 1,000 students to 1,001 is indeed an increase? But is that what the board had in mind? If the board wanted to increase from 1,000 to 2,000, is that really achievable? It may be desirable, but is it realistic given the market forces and challenges? Having the head's input in defining the goals is important, so that there's clarity and also buy-in. And of course, having clearly identified goals as well as the other criteria by which the evaluation will take place means that should the trustees change, the new faces are not going to suddenly change the goalposts on how the head is performing. Typically, the evaluation would include input from the trustees, usually in the form of some kind of survey. This would include elements of the job description, but may be expanded on to incorporate the work with the board and the leadership of the school. Of course, if there are elements arising from the survey, you may want to ask yourself if they should in fact be in the job description anyway, and revise the job description accordingly. It's not uncommon for boards to inherit a job description for the head and simply keep churning it out, irrespective of how fit it is for purpose now. The job description could be revised to focus on the impact and outcomes that would make evaluation much easier. So, for example, you may want to include questions, obviously expanded and tidied up as required, that cover strategic leadership. How does the head articulate the vision and gain buy-in from the stakeholders? Educational leadership. How does the head work with faculty, the teachers, to share a vision for the pedagogy and the educational programs in the school? How are these programs developed and how are the staff inspired and empowered? Could look at organizational leadership. How are the support services managed? How are the policies and systems implemented in the school to ensure the higher standards? What strategies are used to communicate with the different stakeholder groups, including the chair and the board? Financial and business leadership. How effective is the head at managing the business and finance elements of the school, including the personnel involved? To what extent is the head able to manage the budget and provide appropriate resources to support student learning? External leadership. To what extent does the head effectively represent the school with other organizations and international schools to raise the profile and reputation? How does the head demonstrate integrity and strength when negotiating with other organizations? Personal leadership. How does the head cope with ambiguity and change and show resilience and flexibility in times of challenge? Team leadership. How does the head engage and maximize the collaborative input from various teams? How does the head inspire commitment and hold people accountable, balancing the needs of the individual with the needs of the school? As part of the discussion of agreeing the evaluation process, this should include which members of the board would be involved and how the written evaluation will be drafted and approved. Your board may identify a small evaluation committee to analyze survey results and compile a written draft that's discussed during an executive session of the board, where you may agree that, say, the chair and vice chair would follow up with a meeting with the head of school and a copy of the approved evaluation. How familiar are you with the evaluation of your head of school? Are there evaluation criteria that you're not familiar with? Are there elements of the head's evaluation that you're not sure about or you'd want to check through on the job description?